Good morning and welcome to my gardens here at the Heirloom Farmer. I'm Abby. Today is June 10th and I'm really excited to give you a garden tour, show you what I've been planting, what I'm gonna plant today, what we've been harvesting, and talk a little bit about why I recommend no-dig gardening methods and address some of the challenges of weather and weeds. So thank you for joining me. If you have questions, leave a comment or send me an email and I would love to answer any questions that you have. This is my insect bed here that I plant specifically for encouraging beneficial insects. And I just wanted to show you a few things that I've got in here. I'm filling this in as I'm able to with perennials, but right now I've got marshmallow, which are these plants here. It's beautiful. It kind of is reminiscent of a hollyhock and gets beautiful white and pink flowers on tall stalks. This is bee balm here. There's some borage down here. And, not borage, I'm sorry, mullein. Some mullein down here that is beautiful. It's kind of finished with its blooms, but they're still gorgeous. This is coreopsis, which I just love the bright yellow flowers. It's getting ready to just put out a ton of blooms and it will bloom all season long. I've got some echinacea and some of that's getting ready to bloom, and then I also just planted a whole new section of echinacea. I've got chives, lamb's ear, and then I do have some annuals. I've got calendula that's self-sowed over there, some dahlias I started from seed, and then some more lamb's ear and oregano. So I'll be filling this bed in, and then I tend it, but I leave like all of the plant material over winter, all of the seeds, and kind of just let the insects do their thing and they can overwinter here. And I've found that it really has helped increase beneficial insects in my garden. I also interplant flowers and beneficial plants through the rest of my garden, but that area specifically is for insects. This is cabbage here that is looking great. And I'll go through and kind of do a whole tour of the garden, but I wanted to talk about a few things as I go. One of which is the weather. As you know, in central Pennsylvania, the weather this spring has been interesting, to say the least. We've gotten over 10 inches of rain since the beginning of May, and although here we've not had a frost since April, May was very cool and wet. So that has been a challenge for many gardeners. I've had a few challenges here. I've got some standing water. But one of the things that I wanted to share is how much I love using no-dig or no-till methods, especially, well, for a lot of reasons. But when it relates to the weather, I did not have to wait for dry weather to till my garden this spring. And because of that, I have been planting every week since March. I've been planting something every week. Again, I didn't have to wait for dry weather to till my garden or to work the soil. And that enabled me to still have a successful spring garden, even with all of the wet weather we've been having. So I highly recommend you consider using no-dig or no-till methods. If you're new to no-dig, it can seem daunting or overwhelming, and it can seem like you need a lot of compost. But if you start and do small sections of your garden at a time, like even start with a 4x8 foot section in your garden that you switch to no dig and give it a try, you're gonna find that it's not actually overwhelming, and it's really enjoyable once you get started. And I can recommend a lot of great resources for getting started with no dig. I highly recommend Charles Dowding, and all of his YouTube content is so great for getting started with no dig gardening. But because of I use no dig gardening to start this bed, I just put layers of hay and straw, you could also use cardboard, down right on top of the grass, and then I put compost down on top of that and started planting right into it. So again, I didn't have to wait for the weather to cooperate, and that was super helpful this spring. The other thing that I do that is extremely helpful, especially when the weather is challenging, is I am constantly succession planting. So it used to be, years ago, I would plant my entire garden on or around Memorial Weekend, and I just put everything in all at the same time, and that was that. But if the weather wasn't cooperating, it was easy to get behind, and it was overwhelming. It was a daunting task to put in a whole garden at one time. But now I start planting in March, and I continually plant every week right through till September. And it's so much more enjoyable. It's easy to just go out and in 10 minutes tuck in a few plants or sow a few seeds. And if the weather's not cooperating like this spring, I can just run out between rainstorms and tuck in some plants. And if a sowing or succession struggles because of the weather, I already have more plants ready to put in and greater chances of a succession of plants or seeds thriving and doing really well. And again, just because I'm constantly planting, it's much more enjoyable and much higher success. And it really helps if the weather is crazy. And also because I'm constantly planting, that also means that I'm constantly harvesting. And so really from April to December, we're harvesting from our garden. And this year I actually have plans to try and see how much farther into the winter we can go with harvesting, so that we have constantly a supply of fresh food. So those are two things, no dig and then succession planting, that I do that really helps combat tricky weather situations. And because of that, we have been harvesting lettuce since April. We've been harvesting spinach. It's starting to bolt now, but that's okay. Kale, chard, and peas, the snap peas we've been harvesting, and then the purple peas I just showed you. We haven't harvested yet, but they're coming along. We've been eating green garlic scapes, beets, radishes, all kinds of food from our garden already this spring. And so I highly recommend, especially if you're struggling or frustrated with your garden, that you try switching at least one part of your garden over to no dig, and also try succession planting and sowing. It is so much more enjoyable. So On the note of planting, I'm going to talk for a moment about what you can plant in your garden right now. So I am in Center County, Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, and we are past our average last frost date by a few weeks. I know some areas within a few miles of us did get a frost as late as June 1st, but we're past all danger of frost. And really headed into warm weather gardening. So what I have been planting in my garden is lettuce, surprisingly. So I actually succession sow lettuce all year long, and that gives us a continuous supply of lettuce. During the heat of summer, I grow some varieties that do better in the heat, and then I also plant them in with other plants that are going to offer a little bit of shade. And one of the ways that I maximize food production from our garden is by tucking lettuce transplants in anywhere that there is a little bit of space. This is lettuce transplants I just added yesterday. It's called Summertime. This is a new variety to me, but it's supposed to perform really well in the heat, so we're going to give that a try. But we pretty much eat lettuce from our garden from April to December. And I do that by succession sowing. And I've had the best success with lettuce when I sow lettuce in soil blocks or trays and then transplant it into my garden after it has grown. This is slightly bigger than I usually transplant, but that's about a good size to transplant lettuce into the garden, and I've had the most success that way. And now I do have a failure I'm gonna show you, which is another reason I succession plant. These are squash plants here, and this damage is from cucumber beetles. I'm actually surprised that I don't see any right now, but they disappear and hide pretty quick. They're a little yellow beetle. Oh, there's one right there. And they devour cucumbers, squash, melons, anything kind of in that family. I have a terrible time with them here in our garden. I put these transplants out last week. They were a little on the small side, and I did not cover them, and you can see that they really got eaten. So because I succession plant, I have squash, cucumbers, and melon transplants that I'm growing in pots, and I'm going to let them get a little bit larger, and then I'm going to plant them out and cover them with an insect cover to help them get established. And then typically once the plants are well grown and established, the cucumber beetles are not a problem. They just like the tiny little plants and can be a problem. So it's frustrating anytime a pest destroys, or especially if they kill one of your plants. But with succession sowing and always having transplants ready to go into the garden, there's much less stress because I'm not looking at losing an entire crop or an entire season of squash. It's just, unfortunately, these 3 plants I may lose or they may struggle, but I have more plants that will go in their place, and lots of successions of plants coming up that will give us a continual supply of food. So lots of benefits to planting. All right, so I said I was planting lettuce this week, also squash, cucumbers, melons. It's a great time to plant them. You can still plant tomatoes. So if you're feeling behind because of the weather, that is okay. You can certainly plant tomatoes right now. I have some here along the cattle panel trellis. So again, don't worry if you haven't gotten your tomatoes planted, that's okay. You can plant them now. But I do recommend, they're one of the crops that needs a long time to grow. So I do recommend that you plant them soon. You can also sow beans. Beans are one of the few things that I direct sow. I sowed a row of bean seeds here. There's a few coming up there. They should all be popping up here in a day or two. I do succession sow beans every few weeks. I will sow bush beans and some pole beans. You can also plant peppers, and I'm going to show you, I'm actually planting my peppers today. There's a lot of other things that you can plant too, like beets, kohlrabi. You can pretty much plant kohlrabi all season long. That's what this plant is here. I'll show you because they're pretty crazy looking plants. So this is this bulb piece here. It will get bigger yet before we harvest it, but that's what you eat on the kohlrabi. It is excellent. I highly recommend you try kohlrabi if you haven't already. And if you struggle with brassica pests like cabbage worms, I have found I can grow kohlrabi with much fewer problems than, say, like cabbage and cauliflower. So I highly recommend giving kohlrabi a try, even if you've struggled with other brassicas. And I plant sweet alyssum for beneficial insects. I don't know if you can see there's some hoverflies on there. They are really great to have in your garden. They help keep pests in balance. All right, I keep getting distracted by plants. So I am planting my peppers today. So you can certainly still plant peppers. In fact, they prefer hot weather. They don't really like to grow in cold weather. So now is an excellent time to plant your peppers. I am planting Martin's carrot pepper. This is an heirloom variety from the Milheim area, so not too far from us in Pennsylvania. I'm growing that specifically because it's known to do well in our climate and our weather conditions. Lipstick pepper, and I should say all of these peppers are heirloom varieties. Lipstick is a red, beautiful red pimento type pepper, a sweet pepper. Martin's carrot is hot. This is a sweet pepper, and this was the most prolific sweet pepper in my garden last year, so I'm definitely growing that again. This is a banana pepper. A fish pepper, that's another Pennsylvania heirloom, and it gets beautiful green and white variegated leaves on it and beautiful green and white peppers. It's extremely prolific. You can use it any way that you would use a jalapeno pepper, but I would say these are way more prolific than jalapeno pepper plants, and they're gorgeous. I plant some even as ornamentals. And this is King of the North. It is a bell pepper. It's red when mature. You can harvest them young for green bell peppers, but it is known to do well in our climate. And if you've struggled to grow bell peppers in the past, I recommend you try King of the North. It always does well for me in my garden when other bell peppers have not. So I'm gonna be tucking those peppers into my garden. And one thing that I do is I plant using polyculture methods, and I plant extremely close together, as you can probably see from what's already planted. But rather than planting a row of peppers, I will plant a pepper here, I'll plant a pepper over there, I'll plant a pepper in a couple other beds, so that if there is a pest or disease that shows up on a pepper plant, I'm increasing the chances that the other pepper plants are going to thrive. And if a pest does show up, they're not just going to be able to hop from one plant to the other like, ooh, hey, this is a smorgasbord. They're really going to have to try hard to find all the pepper plants. And by planting that way, by planting polyculture style, planting lots of different varieties of plants together, there are so many benefits within the soil and the roots and with insects that you will see when you plant like that. I also plant very closely together, and there's a couple reasons that I do that and a couple reasons I recommend you do that. First of all, it's beautiful. I mean, look at this. This kohlrabi and this sweet alyssum has just been beautiful all spring. So the aesthetics of planting closely together, I love. Also, it maximizes space. So our garden here, I'll show you the whole thing. So I have 6 raised beds and then the one long no dig bed. And that is it. I keep our garden space small because it's much easier to maintain and take excellent care of and put a lot of resources and focus into, but it is still a small space. So to maximize the amount of food we can get, I plant things really closely together and I succession plant. And plants thrive that way. Occasionally I'll get a plant that's like taken over by its neighbor, but for the most part I've had such great success with plants growing this way. They thrive when they are grown close together like this. And because I have focused our compost and our resources in a small space and focus on soil health, they have all of the resources that they need. Look at this dill. This is amazing. I direct sowed this dill back in March and it is just amazing. I started harvesting that and it is beautiful and it's so good, and once it blooms it also attracts a ton of beneficial insects. So I highly recommend you plant closer together. Oh, one other amazing reason to plant closely together is that there's no room for weeds. So occasionally I'll get a weed poking up through, but when the soil surface is covered, it's better for the soil health, but it also suppresses any weeds from growing. They don't get sunlight, they don't germinate, or if they do, they don't grow well. And so by planting closely together, you totally reduce the amount of weeding that you have to do. No dig methods also greatly reduce the amount of weeding that you have to do. So if you are frustrated with weeds, I hear you. I have had many frustrations with weeds, but since I have gone to no dig and planting really close together, I don't struggle with weeds. I still have some weeds to pull. I run a hoe over the surface of the soil about once a week and pull weeds here and there, but it's super enjoyable. I mean, I'll come out with a cup of coffee and just actually enjoy weeding my garden, and it doesn't take long, maybe just a few minutes every week. So another reason that I recommend no dig and planting closely together. All right, a few other things that I planted this week in with our garlic. I added a row of carrots. So I have found with germinating carrots, especially when it's warmer out, or dry, which we haven't had trouble with dry weather this spring, but also with heavy rains. So carrot seeds easily will wash away, and they like to be consistently moist to germinate. So I always plant the seeds and then I put a board down over top of them for a few days. It holds in moisture, protects the seeds, and then I check it, and as soon as I start to see them germinating, I take the board off, and that has been how I've had success growing carrots, which I direct seed. I also planted a row of beans in here, so by the time those beans start to grow and bush out, I will have harvested the garlic. That's my vole trap. I just caught another vole yesterday. If you struggle with voles, or if you have mysterious damage to roots in your garden, it could be voles. I had seen them, and that's why I knew what it was. But you just make these little wooden boxes and put mouse traps inside. No bait needed because voles like to go in small dark places. I have 2 of those in my garden, and I have caught lots and lots of voles, and now my vole population is back in check. I have not had any problems from the voles. I think there's still a few around, but they're no longer being problematic. So that's my recommendation for dealing with voles. And I also interplanted some other brassicas in with the garlic. And then I'll continue planting as the garlic comes out. I'll continue planting into this in early to mid-July. So that is what is going on in the garden right now. If you have any questions, let me know. And I hope that you enjoy planting in your garden. Don't feel behind, don't feel overwhelmed. Find what style of gardening works for you. I always recommend you tend a small garden space, but tend it exceptionally well. You're going to enjoy it so much more, and you're going to find much more success with gardening. All right, that's it for today's tour. I will see you next week. Thank you, and God bless.